He thought her silence meant disinterest, but silence is not absence. Silence, when owned by a woman who knows her worth, becomes an atmosphere he cannot escape. It seeps into the spaces between his words, into the restless hours when he wonders what she is thinking, what she feels, why she no longer chases what she once gave freely. Her quiet becomes a mirror, forcing him to confront the hollow noise of his own need. You feel it too, don't you? The strange power that grows when you stop explaining yourself, when you no longer rush to fill the gaps in conversation, when you simply breathe and let the silence hang like a crown made of air. Because deep down, you've always known, the one who speaks less often holds more power. The one who listens is the one who truly sees. He, the man, carries within him a wound older than words, the fear of insignificance. It is the ache of a boy who once reached out and found no reflection. When a woman speaks too much, he forgets to hear his own emptiness. But when she falls silent, that ache returns. And so, he is pulled back toward her, not because she gives, but because she withdraws. Because her silence reawakens his buried hunger for meaning. Every man chases his reflection in a woman's attention. Every woman is taught to offer that reflection freely, to soothe, to reassure, to keep the peace. Yet in doing so, she betrays her own crown. She forgets that silence in its purest form is sovereignty. It is not the silence of submission. It is the silence of choice. Imagine her the shadow queen. She sits, not speaking, yet everything bends toward her presence. The air thickens. His words stumble. His ego, once inflated by her validation, begins to tremble in the absence of her response. She doesn't punish. She simply no longer performs. And that non-performance, that quiet withdrawal of emotional labor, is the sound of her reclaiming herself. You have felt this before, the urge to over-explain, to repair, to make him see your worth. But the more you speak, the less he listens. Because words are water and desire drowns in excess. When you stop, when you hold, when you simply let silence bloom between you, something ancient happens. He begins to feel the pull of your absence. The human psyche cannot bear an unanswered mystery, and you become that mystery. This is not a game, it is nature. Jung would call it the dance of the anima and animus, the eternal interplay between projection and realization. The man projects his ideal woman onto you, but when you fall silent, the projection dissolves. He begins to see the shadow, his fear, his longing, his unworthiness. And though he may resist, he cannot unsee it, because in that silence he encounters himself. But silence can also wound if born from fear. Some women withdraw not from power, but from pain. They become quiet because they are terrified to speak and lose what little connection remains. Yet true silence, the silence of the shadow queen, is not born of fear. It is born of knowing. She speaks when her words are gold and rests when her presence alone is enough. There is a moment every woman must face, when she realizes that her over-explaining, her proving, her performing were never the bridge to connection. They were the bars of a cage. And when she finally stops speaking to be understood and begins to speak only to be sovereign, her entire energy shifts. Men feel it immediately. They may not know why, but they lean in, drawn by a gravity they cannot name. Do you see it now? The paradox that rules desire, that what you withhold often has more impact than what you give. That when you no longer try to control how he perceives you, you become unforgettable. Silence is not passive. It is active presence. It is the queen's weapon, the witch's spell, the siren's current. Tonight, notice how much you speak to fill silence, to earn safety. And notice what happens when you don't. When you let a question hang unanswered. When you breathe before replying. When you allow your gaze to hold instead of your words. That small restraint is not rejection. It is the beginning of respect, both for yourself and from others. Because silence, when chosen consciously, becomes sacred. It draws men back into their own depth. It teaches them that attention is not owed. It is earned through awareness. And as you embody that stillness, as you sit upon the invisible throne of your calm, his desire will not fade. It will grow. Because what he truly craves is not your approval, it is your presence. He will feel it before he understands it. the subtle shift when your energy no longer reaches for him, but instead returns to you. That is when he begins to pursue, not because you've played a game, but because you've remembered who you are. And yet, a deeper secret waits beneath this surface. For silence is not merely a tool of attraction, it is a mirror of awakening. It reveals what kind of man stands before you, whether he can meet your stillness or collapses into noise, whether he can face his own shadow in your quiet gaze or runs from it into distraction. The silence you hold will separate the boys from the men, the seekers from the sleepers. It will show you what love is built on truth, and what love was merely hunger disguised as affection. But to wield silence as power, you must first make peace with it within yourself. For the woman who fears her own quiet cannot hold it without trembling. And that is where the real transformation begins. Silence, when misunderstood, becomes loneliness, but when embraced, it becomes initiation. The woman who learns to be still begins to sense the raw architecture of her own energy, the electric pulse beneath her calm, the rhythm of her thoughts, the whispers of intuition that were once drowned by the noise of trying to be enough. When you stop speaking to fill space, the silence begins to speak back. It tells you where your power was leaking. It shows you how often your words were a currency of approval, how many times you paid for scraps of attention with explanations that cost your peace. The Shadow Queen knows this lesson by heart. She doesn't raise her voice, she raises her standard. She doesn't compete for space, she becomes the space. A man senses it long before he can articulate it. He feels her silence as pressure. It presses against the edges of his certainty, his confidence, his carefully maintained sense of control. Because his wound, the masculine wound, is the terror of irrelevance. And nothing confronts that terror like a woman who no longer seeks validation. Her silence becomes a mirror in which he must see what he's been avoiding, his own fragility. Every time she withdraws, he feels the ground shift. The flattery he once used to disarm her no longer lands. The promises he repeats sound hollow, even to him. For the first time, he must ask himself, what does he offer to a woman who no longer needs to be chosen to feel worthy? And you, listening now, can feel the echo of that same question turning inward. What happens when you stop chasing the reflection of your worth in another's eyes? What happens when you let your stillness be the measure of your strength? You begin to remember the queen within you, not the one who dominates, but the one who reigns. The one who understands that attention is not affection, that noise is not connection, and that her energy is a kingdom she must guard wisely. In the old myths, the queen was not defined by the number of men who desired her, but by the silence of her court. She ruled not through noise, but through presence. The people followed because she listened before she spoke. In that listening, there was order. In that restraint, there was reverence. That is the same energy that makes a man ache for you long after the conversation ends. He replays your pauses. He imagines your thoughts. Your restraint becomes his obsession because it invites projection. The mind cannot stand an unfinished pattern, and silence is the most powerful pattern of all, a sentence half-spoken that lingers in the air until it becomes sacred. But beware, not all silence is sovereign. Some is born from fear, the silence of a woman who has learned that her truth is dangerous. You may recognize it in yourself, the times you swallowed your words to avoid rejection, the moments you laughed to make others comfortable, the nights you stayed quiet because the truth felt too heavy. That silence wounds. It traps the voice of your intuition behind a wall of compliance. To heal it, you must transmute it. You must sit in silence not because you are afraid, but because you are listening to your own soul, to the pulse beneath your ribs, to the wisdom that rises only when you stop performing. Imagine this, you are in a room with him. The air between you hums with things unsaid. He waits for you to fill the space. You don't. You let the silence expand like an unseen crown forming above your head. His eyes flicker, uncertain. He begins to speak more quickly, to explain, to impress, to perform. And with every word he spills, your power grows. not because you've manipulated him, but because you've held your ground. That is the paradox. The one who holds silence does not lose control, she defines it. And in that definition, the polarity of attraction is restored. He cannot lead what he cannot read. He cannot claim what will not collapse. Silence does not make you cold, it makes you clear. It refines your presence until it cuts through illusion. The queen's silence is a test, not a punishment, but an invitation. It asks, can you meet me here in this stillness? Can you bear the weight of your own reflection in my calm? Tonight, practice this. When you feel the impulse to explain yourself, pause. When you want to rush to fill the gap, breathe instead. Feel the silence like water around you, cool, powerful, alive. Let it wash away the need to prove. Let it polish your edges until your energy gleams without effort. You'll notice something shift. Conversations begin to bend toward you. People lean in. Men search your eyes for clues. Your words, when they come, land like thunder because they are no longer noise. They are decree. The Shadow Queen does not shout. She doesn't beg to be understood. Her silence draws the world to her feet, because the one who can sit in silence has already mastered herself, and that mastery is irresistible. But the deeper mystery still waits. What happens inside a man when he meets that kind of woman? What awakens in him when her silence refuses to feed his need for control, when her stillness forces him to feel the emptiness beneath his performance? That is where the true power of the feminine begins. Something begins to unravel within him. The man who once thrived on validation starts to feel a quiet panic. Her silence, steady, sovereign, draws a mirror before him. It reflects not her affection but his absence. And in that reflection, the architecture of his ego begins to fracture. He feels the weight of every word he's ever used as armor. The rehearsed charm, the polished bravado, the endless reaching for control. It all collapses under the gravity of her stillness, because she offers nothing for his ego to feed on. No approval, no protest, just the clean edge of presence. This is the ancient alchemy between the masculine and the feminine. Jung saw it as the meeting of animus and anima, the masculine mind and the feminine soul. The man seeks light in the woman's gaze, but the moment she stops mirroring his fantasies, he is forced to face his own shadow. And though he resists, he is drawn closer still, because his soul recognizes in her silence the doorway to something real. You may have witnessed this shift, the way a man begins to circle back after you stop explaining yourself, the way his curiosity deepens once your words no longer chase him. It isn't manipulation, it's nature reclaiming balance. The masculine grows restless in emptiness, while the feminine finds power in restraint. Together, they forge polarity, the magnetic tension that gives desire its pulse. But understand this, the power of silence isn't just about him. It's about you reclaiming the part of yourself that was scattered through the noise of needing to be seen. It's about remembering that silence is not the absence of communication, it's the most honest form of it. The queen knows this truth instinctively. She does not answer every question because not every question deserves an answer. She does not rush to clarify her meaning because her energy already speaks louder than her words. When she withdraws her voice, it isn't to punish, it's to protect her vibration. Her stillness becomes a boundary, her silence a fortress made of calm. And yet she feels everything. Don't mistake her quiet for detachment. Beneath that composure lies fire, the same fire that once made her over-explain, over-love, over-give. But now it burns inward, refining her. She has learned that self-respect often sounds like silence. This is where the healing begins for the feminine wound, the fear of abandonment. For centuries, women were taught that silence would make them disappear, that to be heard they must speak, to be loved they must prove. So they overgave until their souls grew thin. But now the Shadow Queen reclaims silence as medicine. She learns to hold it without fear, to breathe into it until loneliness turns to power. When she no longer speaks from the wound, her silence transforms from defense into depth. And in that depth, she becomes magnetic. Because the woman who can be alone without collapsing becomes untouchable. She stops chasing the echo of love and becomes its source. There is an image older than language that captures this energy. A woman seated on a marble throne. Around her, the world moves in chaos, yet she remains still. Her eyes do not plead, her hands do not reach. The silence surrounding her is not emptiness, it is command. This is not arrogance, it is alignment. Men who meet her are changed, even if they never understand why. Her silence triggers their evolution. For in the absence of her constant reassurance, they must build their own self-worth. They begin to ask, perhaps for the first time, what it means to stand beside a woman who does not need saving. Some rise to meet her in sovereignty. Others retreat into comfort, unable to bear the weight of her reflection. And you, perhaps you've seen both. The man who grew when you stopped fixing him, and the one who vanished when your silence no longer fed his illusion. Both were teachers. One taught you the cost of carrying someone's emptiness. The other showed you the beauty of being met at your level. Silence filters truth. It reveals what can endure without constant tending. The relationships that survive it are the ones rooted in awareness, not addiction. For when a man can sit with a woman, silence without demanding explanation, he has entered the realm of real intimacy. But to reach that point, you must first walk through the discomfort. The silence will test you before it frees you. It will whisper doubts, he'll forget you. You're losing him, say something. Those are echoes of the old self, the pleaser, the performer, the girl who equated noise with love. Let them fade. Breathe. Trust that what is meant for you will not require you to abandon your peace. Here lies the paradox the Shadow Queen masters. She no longer fears abandonment because she has befriended solitude. She no longer pleads to be heard because she has learned to listen inward. Her silence is not absence, it is sacred presence. In the language of myth, silence is the veil before initiation. It is the moment before dawn when everything waits in stillness. The man who truly sees her understands this. He doesn't demand her words, he honors her quiet. He feels her energy move beneath the silence like an underground river, and he knows he must meet her there, not with noise but with depth. This is how desire transforms into devotion, not through possession but through presence. And yet, another layer of this truth waits in the dark. What if her silence does not only change him, but also rewrites the meaning of love itself? Love in its truest form is not the chase nor the capture. It is the meeting of two sovereign forces who no longer need to steal light from one another. But this kind of love is rare, almost mythic, because it cannot exist until both have met their own shadows in silence. And it is here that the woman who learns to speak less, to hold her calm, becomes not only desired, but revered. When she stops over-explaining her heart, she begins to understand it. When she stops narrating her worth, she begins to feel it. This is the metamorphosis of the feminine, the rebirth that happens in the quiet. Her silence no longer hides her, it reveals her. Because what once was fear becomes power once she learns to sit in it without trembling. He senses it immediately. The man who once fed on her emotional availability now finds himself disoriented. The familiar rhythm of her giving is gone. Her silence confronts him with the truth that desire cannot be earned through pleading. It must be drawn through polarity. And polarity cannot exist without boundaries. Every time she withholds an unnecessary word, every time she chooses calm over reaction, she rebuilds that polarity. Not to manipulate, but to restore balance. He feels her absence not as punishment, but as gravity. It calls him to rise, to become worthy of her attention again, not because she demanded it, but because she withdrew it with grace. This is where the archetype of the Shadow Queen reaches her full height. She rules not through dominance, but through discernment. Her silence is not empty, it is selective. She listens with intention. She speaks with precision. She understands that every word uttered in desperation drains her throne, while every pause spoken from sovereignty expands it. There is a sacred lesson hidden within this restraint. Power is not in expression, but in control of expression. When you speak less, you feel more. When you listen instead of react, you see beyond appearances. When you allow silence to carry weight, your energy begins to speak a language older than words. You felt this before, haven't you? The moment when someone's silence said more than any argument ever could. When a pause cut deeper than 1,000 explanations. That is the realm of the queen, where restraint becomes revelation. But make no mistake, to arrive here, a woman must pass through fire. Silence will burn away her illusions before it crowns her. It will show her how much of her identity was built on being chosen, validated, understood. It will strip her until only truth remains. That truth is not fragile, it is forged. In Jungian terms, this is the process of individuation, the descent into one's own shadow to reclaim what was disowned. For the feminine, the shadow often hides behind compliance, the desire to please, to smooth over, to nurture beyond reason. But when she turns inward and faces the fear of being unseen, she retrieves something ancient, self-possession. From this inner alchemy, her silence changes frequency. It no longer signals withdrawal, it radiates confidence. Her quiet becomes warm, not cold, grounded, not distant. The man who approaches her now senses the difference. She is not withholding to control, she is withholding to protect the sacred. And that distinction shifts everything. Picture her again, seated before him, eyes calm, breath steady. He speaks, searching for cues, for reassurance, for the reflection that once anchored him. She gives none, yet the air between them vibrates with presence. He feels it, the subtle pulse of her energy, the command in her composure. The urge to earn her gaze becomes instinctive. His voice softens, high. As posture straightens. For the first time, he feels the need not to impress, but to meet her. This is the hidden gift of silence. It reorders energy. The masculine, when faced with true feminine stillness, begins to awaken his own depth. He learns to listen. He learns to feel. The dynamic shifts from performance to presence, and that is when desire evolves into something enduring. But not every man will make that journey. Some will mistake her silence for rejection and retreat into ego's armor. Others will seek louder women to drown their discomfort. Yet a rare few, those who are ready, will stay. They will see her silence not as distance, but as invitation. And those men will find themselves changed. Because to stand in the presence of a woman who has mastered her silence is to confront the raw truth of one's own soul. It humbles, it refines, it awakens. The queen, therefore, does not chase, for she understands that true desire cannot be forced. It must be earned through resonance. She speaks when her voice serves truth, not validation. And when she is silent, she teaches through energy what words could never convey. You too can feel this transformation beginning inside you. It starts small, a pause before reacting, a breath before explaining, a choice not to fill the space. But over time it grows. You start to hear the wisdom beneath your own stillness. You begin to trust that silence can hold you. And when you do, your energy changes everything around you. The world slows, the noise fades, the right people lean closer. Because silence, when mastered, does not repel, it magnetizes. It becomes the invisible crown that only those attuned to truth can see. And yet, a final revelation remains, one that lies beneath the throne itself. What happens when the queen's silence stops being a strategy and becomes her natural state of being? What unfolds when silence is no longer a means to desire, but a reflection of wholeness itself? When silence ceases to be a weapon or a performance, it becomes wisdom. It becomes the language of a woman who no longer seeks power outside herself. Her silence no longer tests or tempts. It simply is asterisk. It is the quiet pulse of her essence, unwavering, grounded, whole. At this stage, the Shadow Queen transcends the very polarity that once defined her power. The game between chase and retreat dissolves. She no longer needs to provoke desire, for she has become desire itself, not as hunger, but as presence. The energy that once reached outward now circulates inward, creating an aura of peace so dense that everything chaotic falls away. Men feel it instantly. It's not the silence that seduces them anymore, but the serenity. They sense the difference. This is not the stillness of withholding, but the stillness of knowing. Her quiet does not pull him into confusion, it calls him into alignment. He begins to match her rhythm, to slow down, to breathe. In her silence, he finds permission to rest, to drop his own defenses, to stop performing. This is where the true polarity lives, not in tension, but in harmony. The queen's silence teaches him to meet her not as a pursuer, but as an equal. And in that meeting, the masculine and feminine no longer mirror each other's wounds. They mirror each other's wholeness. You can feel that possibility stirring within you, can't you? The memory of who you were before the noise, before the constant reaching, explaining, proving. That woman is still there, beneath the layers of defense. She is not cold. She is pure fire contained within calm. She does not chase approval because her worth has become self-evident. She does not need to be understood to feel seen. She simply exists, radiant in her restraint. This silence is not empty. It hums with life. It listens to intuition, to subtle cues, to the unspoken truths moving through the room. It discerns before it decides. It waits before it reacts. It holds space not as a strategy, but as a state of being. In the presence of such a woman, even the air feels reverent. The man who stands before her senses that he cannot win her through words, only through awareness. He realizes that desire at this level is not conquest but communion. The silence becomes a sanctuary in which both are stripped of pretense, where everything false is burned away by the quiet flame of authenticity. This is the essence of individuation, the process Jung described as becoming whole, not perfect. The feminine, once fragmented by the need to please, reclaims her missing pieces through silence. She meets her shadow, the girl who begged to be chosen, the woman who feared being forgotten, and she welcomes them home. In that reunion, the fear of abandonment dissolves, replaced by a profound truth. Nothing real can ever leave you, and nothing false can truly stay. When she sits in silence now, she is not waiting for a response. She is communing with her own soul. The energy that once spiraled outward now roots itself deep in. Oh, the ground of being. Her words, when they come, carry the authority of that rootedness. They are not attempts to persuade. They are declarations of truth. Every syllable carries the vibration of someone who no longer bargains with her worth. Men who meet this energy often call it mystery, but it is not mystery, it is mastery. The mastery of inner equilibrium, the mastery of emotional regulation, the mastery of being whole without needing to prove it. She has discovered that silence in its highest form is not absence, it is sovereignty. It is the sacred pause between stimulus and response where true choice lives. In that space, she is untouchable. The world can whirl, people can project, but she remains centered, calm, observing, radiant. And yet the paradox remains. The more peaceful she becomes, the more he desires her. Because what the masculine truly craves, beyond beauty, beyond passion, is peace. The kind of peace that cannot be bought or begged for. The kind that emanates from a woman who has already met herself in the dark and chosen to stay. That is the essence of the Shadow Queen, not dominance, not manipulation, but self-possession. Her silence is the echo of a healed feminine. She is no longer reacting to the masculine wound of control, nor replaying her own wound of abandonment. She has transcended the pattern by embodying stillness itself. Now her silence no longer draws him in, it draws him *up. It calls the man to meet her on a higher plane, to rise into his own integrity. He must learn to be still too, to listen, to hold space, to meet her depth with his own. And those who cannot will fall away, not out of rejection, but resonance. For only those who vibrate in truth can remain in the presence of such calm. You see, silence at this level is not about creating attraction, it is about sustaining evolution. The queen's silence becomes a field of transformation, where those who step near her must shed their illusions or turn away. And this is her final gift. She no longer seeks to change anyone. Her silence does the work for her. So tonight, when you sit alone and the urge arises to reach out, to explain, to fill the quiet pause, let that silence wrap around you like silk. Feel its weight, its warmth, its strength. This is not emptiness. It is fullness in disguise. Because the woman who has mastered silence does not fear being unseen. She knows that those who can truly see will always find her, and those who cannot will only hear the echo of what they lost. There comes a moment in every woman's evolution when she realizes that silence is not the absence of voice. It is the presence of power. It is the quiet after the storm, the breath between death and rebirth. The Shadow Queen has walked through the noise of her old self, the one who begged to be understood, who mistook chaos for connection, who spoke until her soul grew weary. Now, she moves through the world with a quiet authority that cannot be imitated. He feels it before he even hears it, the shift in her vibration. There is no longer a need to prove, to please, to explain. She has become the still point in a spinning world. Her energy no longer chases, it commands. And in that command, something extraordinary happens. The masculine feels both the freedom and the challenge of true polarity. He is no longer being lured by her words, but by her wholeness. You know this sensation, the peace that comes when you stop performing for love, when you realize that the version of you that talked the most was the one who feared silence the deepest. Because silence used to mean danger. It meant disconnection. It meant he was slipping away. But now, silence means alignment. It means trust in timing. It means surrender to something larger than control. This is the healed feminine, no longer reactive, but responsive. No longer desperate to be seen, but deeply anchored in her own vision. Her silence is no longer a defense mechanism. It's an expression of discernment. She has nothing to prove because she has already met herself in the silence and found everything she was looking for. The Jungian process of individuation demands this kind of descent. Every woman must face the shadows she once silenced, the pain, the longing, the rage, the shame. She must sit with them until they transform into wisdom. This is what makes her silence so magnetic. It's not empty stillness. It's a vessel filled with the energy of every truth she has ever reclaimed. When a man stands before her now, he does not meet a void. He meets presence. He meets a calm so profound it makes him question his own noise. In her quiet, he begins to hear his own soul for the first time. This is why his desire grows when she speaks less. Her silence pulls him inward. It triggers the forgotten language of intuition that his logical mind had long buried. He becomes a student of her stillness, unknowingly, unwillingly, but inevitably. Yet the queen does not hold silence to keep him near. She holds it because it is who she is. Her peace is not a performance, it's her natural frequency. She doesn't weaponize detachment. She simply resides in equilibrium. And from that equilibrium, the world, including him, adjusts around her. You too have that power. The power to create stillness so magnetic it reshapes everything it touches. But to hold it, you must first trust it. You must stop believing that your worth lives in how much you are heard. You must understand that silence does not erase you, it amplifies you. It lets your energy speak where words once tried and failed. Try it. The next time you feel the impulse to explain yourself, pause. The next time you feel the urge to text, first breathe. Let silence move through you like a current. Watch what happens. The ones who were only attached to your noise will fade. The ones who are attuned to your truth will draw closer, quietly, reverently. Because silence filters reality. It separates connection from codependence. It reveals who can stand with you in stillness and who can only exist in chaos. It purifies the field. He will feel it, the shift from performance to peace. He will notice the quiet in your responses, the absence of urgency in your tone. And though he may not say it, something in him will awaken. He will crave your presence, not for what it gives him, but for what it calls forth from him. Your silence will become the mirror in which he must finally see himself without illusion. And this is where desire transcends the body. It becomes reverence. It becomes the kind of hunger that is not about possession, but about participation in something sacred. The queen no longer needs to speak to be understood, because her energy communicates truth directly to the soul. The fire she once scattered through words now burns quietly in her eyes. Her silence is no longer the absence of passion. It is passion refined. It is fire contained, directed, divine. The masculine feels this and is transformed. The woman who once spoke to soothe him now teaches through stillness. She no longer feeds his ego, she awakens his essence. And whether he stays or leaves, she remains untouchable, her value unshaken, because her silence has become her sanctuary. In the old stories, the queen did not shout her power across the kingdom. She simply was the center. The world moved around her gravity. Those who could not meet her gaze bowed and departed. Those who could stayed, not because she demanded it, but because her energy made leaving impossible. This is your initiation. To realize that you never lost power, you only gave it away through noise. Now, the silence that once frightened you becomes the throne you were meant to sit upon. And in that silence, love returns not as longing but as recognition, not as need but as choice. The man who can meet your stillness will never be confused by your quiet. He will understand that it is not distance but depth, not coldness but command. And when you speak again, when your words finally break the silence, they will not be a plea, they will be a decree. Because the woman who has met herself in silence no longer seeks to be desired. She becomes the source of desire itself. The woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.